my neighbors. Top of the morning to you guys. This is January 20th, 2023. It's a good Friday. We got Lee Zeldin joining the show today, so I'm super excited about that. Also, a good friend of the show, good friend of everybody here, Michael Henry, is apparently throwing his hat in the ring for the chairman of the state GOP, and according to the New York Post, he's got a pretty good chance. Yes, Kimberly, what a different state this would be if Lee was running it. Also, we've got an interesting story that apparently Mayor Adams has absolutely no idea how numbers work. It turns out when you talk about crime numbers, you should wait for the newest numbers to be released so you do not look like a jackass. Also, if we've got time, we're going to talk about polls, and we're going to talk about how polls basically can get you to where you want them to be. There are polls out that say Ron DeSantis is currently leading in the national GOP race, and there are polls out that say that Donald Trump is leading. So who the hell really knows what's going on? Of course, those polls are a little bit skewed, considering Ron DeSantis has not actually announced he's running for president, but we will see about all that. Also, guys, you guys are going to want to tune in all across our platforms. Make sure you guys hit that like button, share this video out across all your platforms. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Rumble, smash that Rumble button. Want to thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, the best way to support this show, head on over to loudmajorityus.com, sign up for our newsletter, check out the shop so you never miss out on anything we've got going on. If you're on Rumble and you feel like throwing those Rumble rants in, we appreciate it. Of course, this is a user content generated show. We cannot keep the show going without your support, so of course we appreciate that. This to the news. This from the New York Post. Michael Henry in bid to become the New York GOP party leader. Very exciting. I was talking to Michael Henry about this yesterday, and he seems pretty good about it. He seems to be pretty happy with where things are going. From the New York Post, Michael Henry, the underdog candidate who put on a strong showing in the race for state attorney general last year, is seeking to become the next chairman of the New York State Republican Party. I could not be more excited about this. I really hope things are. I really hope he's not jumping in blind. I hope he has the shot that he seems to think that he has, because I think he'd be great at it. I know there were a lot of shenanigans that went on with the top brass at the party in the last election. I've discussed that with numerous people, and I know that Michael Henry, someone young, someone vibrant, somebody from Queens, would understand how to run the party appropriately, and I think that would be a big step for Republicans here in New York. I said it on the show yesterday. This is a red state. It's a red state with a whole bunch of blue dots, and I think that if we can marshal the resources of younger people with new ideas, we will really see a dramatic change here in New York. Back to the article. Democratic incumbent Attorney General Letitia James won re-election for a second term, but Henry captured better than expected at 46% of the vote in a heavily blue state. He pushed stricter bail laws, had the backing of the police unions, and hammered James for refusing to debate him because Letitia James is a coward. She's a coward. She has no problem going after Donald Trump for crimes he didn't commit. She has no problem letting criminals out on the street. But, however, Donald Trump's 70-year-old CEO is in Rikers Island now. So I guess, we'll call that a win. We'll call that a win. Criminals roaming the streets all over the place, as we'll get to later. But Letitia James doesn't seem to have a problem with that. However, she will rededicate her life to finding out whether or not Donald Trump once, rolled through a stop sign or, failed to yield at a crosswalk. Minor crime. I'm sure he jaywalked once or twice. Maybe we should write him a ticket for that. The current state GOP chairman, Nick Langworthy, was elected to Congress, and Republicans officials will vote to replace him in the coming weeks. In the letter to the 62 Republican leaders on Wednesday, Henry said that the GOP made progress in 2022, but must build on that momentum. We helped secure a majority in Congress. We are now on the precipice of bringing new voters to the Republican Party for good because we are right on the issues, Henry said. He's got that right. Nobody believed we would even come that close, as close as we did. He vowed to boost voter registration and fundraising efforts. Registered Democrats outnumber Republicans more than 2-1 in the state. That's what I've been talking about. It's time to get new voters. It's time to bring in young voters, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on after the Lee Zeldin interview about what we're going to be doing here at the Loud Majority to start bringing in younger people to the movement to start to, look, boomers are going away. Bottom line, Fox News viewers are dying off. It's time to embrace the new generation. It's time for young Republicans statewide to really put some hustle behind this muscle. So, look, we've got the numbers. One of the largest Republican clubs in America is right in the heart of New York City, led by my friend Gavin Wax. You guys should check them out, NewYorkYoungRepublicans.com, NYYRC.com. But if you guys want to get involved in the movement, this is important. It's important that we start going to places that Republicans don't normally go to. I'm talking about the inner cities, and I'm talking about college campuses, and I'm talking about high schools. Democrats have no problem indoctrinating your children in kindergarten. However, we as Republicans seem to not be able to change at all. How many of you guys get those ridiculous mailers at home with candidates' pictures on them? Do you ever look at them? Have they ever once swayed your vote? Have they ever informed you on an issue, or do you just grab them and throw them away with the penny saver? It's time for people to start adapting. And for those who do not, look, I've said it on this show for months, and I'll keep saying it. Animals that do not evolve die. Animals that do not evolve go extinct. And the fact is, right now, the Republican Party in New York it's stuck in the 80s, doing the exact same things they did to get Ronald Reagan elected. If you helped get Richard Nixon elected, I want to thank you so much for what you did. It is time to make way for the younger generation, and I think Michael Henry would be a step in the right direction for that. This back to the article. This past cycle, Republicans swayed unaffiliated voters and disenfranchised Democrats because they are right on the issues, and it showed in Assembly districts where more voters chose Republicans over Democrats despite registration numbers, Henry said. He also vowed to craft statewide absentee ballot, canvassing, and early voting programs so that candidates can bank the votes they need before Election Day. Absolutely. I know a lot of people don't like this. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. But on this show, I'm going to tell you things that maybe you don't want to hear. And it's okay if you don't agree with me. It's okay if we don't agree on the idea of ballot harvesting. It's okay if we don't agree on the idea of early voting. But the fact is, these are the rules. These are the rules that are put in place. And if we rely on just Election Day voting, while Democrats get to vote for an entire month while doing ballot harvesting, we will never win again. We will never win again. It is so important that so long as these are the rules, we need to play by them. I don't like the rules. I want to go back to Election Day. But the fact is, right now, these are the rules Democrats have put forth. So the only solution we have, the only opportunity we have, is to use those rules, use those standards against them, get our people in power, and then change the rules back to the way they were for, 250 years. That's the only possible way we, as a movement, we as a Republican Party are going to evolve. We need to get into the colleges. This is incredibly important. I've got a big announcement coming up about a college tour that we're starting here over at the Loud Majority all over the state, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to launch this college tour, this college speaking tour over here, and I'm going to be honest, like I said, I'm pretty jacked about it. I am pretty jacked about it. Back to the article. Henry, 42, is a lawyer who resides in Astoria. It was pretty funny. I was in Astoria about 2 weeks ago for an event, and I'm walking down the street, and I just ran into him walking down the street. He's a man of the neighborhood. And that's what we need. We need people who have been on the block. We need people who have been in the neighborhood, who know exactly what's going on, not like people like Letitia James and Kathy Hochul, who sit in their ivory towers and just point their finger and dictate things, as we've seen with the new housing policies going on in the state of New York. Because I got news for you guys. If you're out here on Long Island and you look at the new housing policies, we're actually bringing somebody in next week, someone who knows far more about this than I do. We're going to be bringing someone in to talk about the housing policies, because if you don't think the Massapequa Mall, the Pilgrim State Psych Center, and the Kings Park Psych Center are targets for Kathy Hochul's low-income housing projects, then you're on drugs. You're absolutely on drugs. We don't want these housing developments in our communities. We don't want to lose the feel of the suburbs. But Kathy Hochul's going to go after it because she's from Buffalo and she has absolutely no idea whatsoever what we want, A, here in the downstate, but B, in the suburbs in general. She has no idea what we want because she sucks. And that's why it was so important to get a guy like Lee Zeldin in, which we're going to talk to former Congressman Lieutenant Colonel Zeldin about in a little bit. Back to the New York Post article. Other Republicans seeking to be the party chair include Rockland County Chairman Lawrence Garvey, former Hudson Valley Assemblyman and congressional candidate Colin Smith, and upstate Assemblyman Chris Teague, who is the chairman of a Republican Party upstate that I can't pronounce. A well-placed GOP insider said that Henry will get serious consideration for this post. Henry acquitted himself well during the campaign with a good ticket mate in Lee Zeldin, the source said. Some Orthodox Jewish activists say they oppose Garvey's candidacy following disputes over housing development in Rockland County. So at the moment, it would seem like Michael Henry is the front runner for this. Unless someone else jumps in, unless somebody else is out there whipping votes in the background, which is entirely possible because that's the way politics works. However, I think Michael Henry would be a fresh face for the Republican Party. He's a lawyer. He knows what he's doing. And, I'm going to be honest with you. Michael Henry, all in all, good guy. I'm not to say the other ones aren't. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that, you guys have seen Michael Henry down here out campaigning. You guys know Michael Henry. So if I were you, I would do everything possible to call your local reps and see what we can do to get Michael Henry as the state GOP chair. And, the fact that these chairmanships like Ronna McDaniel and now Congressman Nick Langworthy, who has to give up his post as the state GOP chair, the fact that these posts are becoming newsworthy, the fact that they're in the news just goes to show you that the infrastructure of politics matters just as much as what we've been doing over the course of the last 2 years, energizing voters, doing the rallies. Over the next 2 years, it's going to be about building infrastructure. It's going to be about doing things that aren't fun. It's going to be about going out and registering voters, going out and getting new voters, getting Democrats to switch their party registration so that we know where they are when it's time to target them. If you're down here on Long Island, you know that our county legislatures are up this year. Suffolk County Executive is up this year. I'm sure it's going to be a hotly contested battle all around. I just got word of a former friend of the show who may be running for county legislator. We'll talk to him about it. It's incredibly important that we keep these legislatures because it gives us the local control that we need. Not to mention, I think it will make a real statement, a real splash, if we are able to pick up some of the city council races that got close last year. Obviously, we want to keep Vicky Palladino's seat, Joe Borelli's seat. We only have 6 out of the 52 in New York City right now. So it's going to be important for everybody watching from Queens and Brooklyn and Staten Island that it's time to get out there. It's time to do a little bit less social media posting and a little bit more door knocking. I understand that stuff's not the most fun thing in the world. There's a lot of people who like to talk shit online about what they're doing and how they're doing it, but you don't really see them out on the street. You don't really see them doing the hard work. I mean, you just don't. And it's upsetting because if the amount of people who ran their mouth on Facebook would actually get out and go knock on some doors, we could actually seriously make a dent in the stuff that's going on all over our city, all over our towns. Push back against Kathy Hochul. Stand up for the school board members that are actually doing the right thing. Stand up for the school boards that are trying to fight back against Governor Hochul and her mandates. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who think that if they just post something on social media, that's enough. And I hate to break it to you guys, it's not enough. It's not enough. It's time for all of us to get involved. And look, elections don't sleep. That's it. The one good thing about politics is that it never ends. It absolutely never ends. If you guys are interested in running for your local school board, please reach out. I'll do everything I possibly can to help you guys out. Nothing's changing around here. A lot of people, have their ideas about what's going on over here. Nobody knows. And if you want to know, just call me and I'll tell you. But the washwomen on Facebook are incredibly interesting to me. The people just sitting around claiming they know what's going on. There's one idiot lawyer running around Long Island saying a whole bunch of nonsense about me. I kind of just let it fall off I let it roll off my back like water off a duck's ass. Because I don't care, because I know that the people watching this and the people that are engaged and the people that have actually joined in this fight, the people that have knocked doors for Lee Zeldin, the people that have gone out and ran for school board, put their name forward, are still going to be there because the fight doesn't end. Because the fight doesn't end. Guys, if you're on Facebook, make sure you guys hit that like button. Share this video all over the place. If you're on Rumble, make sure you hit that Rumble button. Share this URL across all of your social media platforms. Guys, the best way to support this show, heading to loudmajorityus.com. Grab your Let's Go Brandon shirt right here. That way you can make a splash when you go to the supermarket. Because I promise you, I wear this thing out and I make new friends everywhere I go. So that is the best way to support what we've got going on here. Sign up for the newsletter so that you can be kept up to date on the stuff that's going on here. I've got this story also from the New York Post. Mayor Eric Adams, when he came in, a lot of people thought he was probably the best of the worst choices. A lot of people thought that out of the Democratic ticket, he was probably the least shitty choice. He was the least bad choice. And now we are seeing that even though he was the least bad choice, he was still an awful choice. This from the Post. New York City starts 2023 with more than 18% spike in serious assaults after Adams claims that crime is trending downward. Well, that's what you get, Mayor Adams, when you come out with a whole lot of this. That's what you get when you're so focused on illegal immigrants because you claim we're a sanctuary city because you won't stand up to your left wing. That's what happens when you spend your entire day figuring out where we're going to house all these migrants being sent to us from the southern border. You wanted this. You wanted this. You wanted New York to be a sanctuary city for all. And now it turns out it's going to cost New York City $2 billion to house illegal immigrants over the course of the next year. $2 billion. I wonder how much of that $2 billion could go into fixing our schools. And I don't mean fixing them in a educational way. I mean physically fixing the buildings, putting air conditioning in so kids aren't sweating their asses off all day long, fixing the roofs so they don't deal with leaks, getting new computers, things like that. Things that would actually help New York City, the school district that spends the second most on education in the entire country, just behind LA County, and gets terrible results. But Mayor Adams won't stand up to his left wing. He won't stand up to District Attorney Alvin Bragg. While Alvin Bragg ignores crime, but he seems to be very focused on this new book coming out from one of his prosecutors about how it could damage the Trump investigation because it would show, are you ready for this, partisanship in the District Attorney's office. Oh, really? Partisanship. You mean you taking all that money from George Soros? That didn't show partisanship. The fact that you allow criminals to roam the streets, that didn't show partisanship. The fact that you pled down 3 hate crimes against Orthodox Jews last week, that didn't show partisanship. No. A book by one of your prosecutors that, let's be honest, nobody's going to read. Nobody's going to read this book. This is what Alvin Bragg is concerned about. He's not concerned with the 18% spike in serious assaults. Back to the New York Post article. The Big Apple's new year is starting off with a thud as NYPD statistics show a serious assault surge of more than 18% compared to the same time in 2022. Rapes were nearly up 16%. Rapes, 16% more rapes. Congratulations. Congratulations, New York City. You're doing a bang-up job. Rapes are up 16%. Robberies and burglaries rose 9.4% and 5.5%, respectively, for an overall 3.4% increase in year-to-date in major crimes, according to the NYPD statistics. Comstat figures emerged after Mayor Eric Adams, and the New York City Police Commissioner said that the city had finally turned the corner on crime and that worried New Yorkers could expect a better 2023. We are leaving 2022 with crime trending downwards, Adams said during a January 5th news conference. On the bright side, the latest numbers show that shootings and murders continue to decline this year at a rate of 26.7% and 12.5% respectively compared to 2022. And I said this before. Is it possible that we've had so many murders in New York City? The reason why murder statistics are going down is because the murderers have already been murdered. Is that possible? That we've had so many murders, so many shootings, that the people committing these crimes can no longer do it because they are already dead. There's no way to figure that out. But all I know is that New York City over the course of the last 3 years has broken records year over year in murders and shootings. Serious crimes are up. Subway crimes on the rise. Police don't feel safe. The Ferguson effect is in full effect in New York City. If you're a police officer in New York City and you see the way the press is going to treat you if you're caught on video doing something totally innocuous, why would you interact? Why would you give up your life? Why would you want to get chauvined? I'm not saying what Derek Chauvin did was right. However, I am saying 25 years in jail, a little bit much. They made an example out of that guy. They made an example out of him. And if I was a young officer in New York, I mean, look, I know 5 or 6 guys during the whole riots, during the BLM riots, who turned in their badges. Went to their to the desk sergeant, to the captain, took their gun out, took their badge out, put it on the desk, and said, "This is not what I signed up for." I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I do feel bad for the people that are sitting there that got 16, 17, 18 years in. Because if you're 2 years away from a pension, why would you do anything to mess that up? Except just ride the wave. I don't blame them for that. They're making a conscious decision. When you do not have a district attorney, when you do not have a press, when you do not have a mayor that stands behind you and is going to back you up when you do things, why would you as a police officer deal with the guy who you just saw jump a turnstile? If you know that's probably going to lead to some sort of an altercation. I was in Penn Station the other day. 6 officers surrounded 2 people yelling at each other. Why do that? Why do that why engage in that sort of activity if you're a young cop in New York City and you know that, God forbid, that situation escalates, you're not going to get the support of law enforcement, of the higher brass. If they're going to sell you right down the river to make a political point, if they're going to throw you in prison so that left-wing activists don't burn down New York City, why would you engage in that? I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you whatsoever. This, back to the article. A policing expert, retired NYPD sergeant, said it is still early in the game to predict what statistics meant because we are only dealing with a couple of weeks. Well, that doesn't really matter because it's year over year. This is the thing that people have to think about, though. We had pretty close to record increases in crime last year, said Gene Kahlo, an adjunct professor at John Jay College for Criminal Justice. So if we're not down this year, we're in trouble because then this is the new normal and it will continue to get worse as they go along instead of leveling off or going down. At this time last year, overall major crime was up 35.2% with a nearly doubling in auto thefts, of 61% increase in grand larcenies. Robberies also increased at a rate of 25.1%, followed by rapes, 15.8%, and felony assaults at 7.7%. The fact that we're seeing just rapists roam in New York City is nauseating to me. We live in a world where people don't stop these sorts of things. You see something disgusting happening on the subway, most people just take out their phones. None of this shit ever happens in front of me because I tell you what, I wouldn't be taking my phone out. I'd be taking my shoe off to beat the shit out of some guy with on the subway. It's unbelievable. that we live in a world now where it is simply not safe to be in New York City, one of my favorite places in the world. I go there, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a month. I was just there the other day. The amount of homeless people living in their own filth. Not only did it make me sick, but it made me sad. It made me sad. Maybe we'd be able to do more for these people if we weren't spending $2 billion housing people that have no right to be here in the first place. Perhaps. What I think Mayor Adams should do is when Governor DeSantis, when Governor Abbott send these buses to New York City and they stop at the Port Authority bus terminal, you know what he should do? He should just let the bus keep going right to Toronto. See how they like it. See how that communist Justin Trudeau, the son of Fidel Castro, likes it. See if he likes it. Send the bus right to Toronto. I got no problem with that. Justin Trudeau likes illegal immigration so much, let him deal with it. But Mayor Adams doesn't have the stones to confront his left wing. Alrighty, guys, right in a minute, we're going to be getting to our interview with Lee Zeldin. I was so excited for him to come in for one of his first sit-down interviews since the election. But before we get to that, hit that Rumble button, share the video out across all of your social media platforms. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, as always, this bright and early at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we will be right back with Congressman Lee Zeldin. Alrighty, guys, we are back here on LFA TV. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you guys are following over at rumble.com/LFA TV for all of our interviews coming out first before they drop on the Loud Majority page. And I want to welcome somebody here who I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. He's a hell of a guy, a dear friend of mine. A lot of people say that he is the man who actually saved America with the work he did here in New York. Loud Majority, LFA family, please welcome my friend, Mr. Lee Zeldin.
Hey.
How's it going? How's it going?
It's great to be with you. Everything's good.
That's good. Awesome. So, what have you been up to over the course of the last couple of months? Because I mean, you went running around in D.C. for years, in Congress. Now you're back home. What's what have you been up to?
Well, I'll tell you, there was one period every 2 years, even year, that I always looked forward to right after an election, because during these campaigns, win or loss, you as a candidate spend less time with your family than you'd like. And for me, every 2 years to be able to spend November and December just a little more time catching up with the family, that is the best highlight. That's the best perk of when the election day is right in the rearview mirror. Once January 3rd rolls around, this year what was different was I was no longer a member of the House of Representatives. And I was watching what's going on back in D.C., and they're going through 15 rounds of voting. And after 4 terms, 8 years, I mean, these are people who are friends. You spent a lot of your life together. And while there are individuals I will miss, and I enjoyed serving in the House a lot, I got to tell you, as I'm watching the 15 rounds of voting, I wasn't regretting that I wasn't there for that. And over the course of the last couple of weeks since that's gone by, listen, one thing I know for sure is I'm going to stay involved and active. I want to do my part to be able to help save our state and save our country. There are important local elections that'll come up this November. There will be an important presidential and congressional and other state legislative level races that'll come up in November of 2024. And I just want to continue to do my part. I'm in the private sector, and I will try to spend more time with my wife and daughters than I would normally, but I'm not going to go away. It's important for all of us to make sure that we're involved, trying to make a difference. You can't just let the other side have free reign without a check. Yeah, some people get an opportunity to be that check inside of office, and maybe the most important one is from us outside of government. Well, that's awesome, because I know a lot of people locally were saying, what's next for Lee Zeldin, because we can't lose him. He's too young. He did far too well in this governor's race, like I was telling you before. When I was down at Turning Point USA, anytime somebody's like, "You're from Long Island, where's Lee Zeldin? Do you know him? He's the guy who saved America." There were a lot of people that got elected this year because of you throughout the state, and I think that New York was able to make a real splash because we had you at the top of the ticket. Yeah, and there was no red wave nationally, and there should have been. I have plenty of theories as to why that is, that I feel pretty strongly about. Yet here in New York, we delivered a red wave.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the state, a lot of the team ran as one, as one team, top down, bottom up. We're all on the same page, same message. We had many of the same core beliefs on the issues that were most important to the voters, and we worked hard. I would always say, I can guarantee you that we will win this race as long as everyone everywhere was doing everything in their power, all in, taking nothing for granted. And fortunately, as a team, it wasn't just the people who were running, but also the people who were out there campaigning, knocking on doors, making phone calls. Folks were showing up at these rallies, thousands strong, towards the end of the campaign. And what happened as a consequence is now we see down in Washington that there are 222 House Republicans in a Republican majority. Where if we went with some status quo election here in New York, there would have been 218 Democrats, 217 Republicans. So right here in New York, we did our part to help flip the House of Representatives, and there's a lot of good people who got elected to other offices, and I'm proud of their effort, and I'm proud of the campaign that we ran.
Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously, we focus a lot on the local stuff here, and I still want to take back the New York State Senate because we had it when I was up in the Senate 7 years ago, and we need a check on your former rival, Governor Hochul, who now apparently wants to put up cheap housing all over Long Island and basically ruin our beautiful island.
She wants to
out
declare.
here.
Yeah, she's talking about declaring war on the suburbs, and she thinks that she was elected town supervisor, county executive, monarch. There are so many different positions in her head, so many extra powers that she's granting herself. And we already lead the entire country in out-migration. New Yorkers are fed up. They're going to places like Tennessee and the Carolinas and Florida and Texas and elsewhere. And this is only going to fast forward that exodus from our state. If people who love their suburb, their community, all of a sudden they have people from Albany dictating how they're going to change this community that they've always lived in, that they love, that they feel like they're in charge of. What we have now, instead of local control, is local control. We saw it inside of our schools, and now we're seeing it with zoning in our local communities. So she put that out during a State of the State address. A State of the State address that lacked a tremendous amount of substance, that was remarkably unremarkable. And where she does decide to come out with a plan, it's a plan that really would take our suburbs backwards.
I mean, I covered the State of the address because I have to for the show. So I watched it so you guys don't have to. I sat through. Well, it was boring. It was just unbelievable how out of touch Governor Hochul is with particularly the downstate. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that because New York is so different, because you have the downstate, you got New York City, you got Western New York, the Finger Lakes, everything is different. I think she is so out of touch because she's not from the downstate. She doesn't understand that a lot of our relatives, or our grandparents, our parents, left Brooklyn and Queens to come out to Long Island because we wanted a front yard and a backyard and a pool, and we wanted all that stuff. And now putting up these affordable housing complexes, and of course, affordable housing is never affordable. It never works out. And all we have to do is look at the nicest buildings in New York City, how they're nice for 10 years, and then nobody does any more work on them, and then there's asbestos and mold and all the rest of it. So I think that she's just completely out of touch with what the people down here are really looking for.
Yeah, no doubt. And when Joe Biden's giving a State of the Union address, he's reading off a teleprompter, but he's hitting a lot of different topics. All he has to do is read from the teleprompter. Now, what that shows...
That's a big ask for him, It's a big ask.
But, I'll tell you what it shows is that despite President Biden's flaws, and there are many, which include public speaking, he's staffed up to a level where you have a team doing their homework. We might totally disagree with a lot of what they're proposing, but it's more of a well-rounded speech than what you saw from Hochul's State of the State address. So Hochul has her flaws. And when she's giving a speech like she delivered with that State of the State address, to me that exposes not just her flaws, and it certainly exposes many of them, and you just suggested part of that being wholly out of touch with the suburbs. but it really shows that she's not even well staffed. She doesn't have a good team around her. You're giving a State of the State address, and you're going to do a 1-hour speech. She covered what really could have been dealt with in 6 minutes, 8 minutes. She could have gotten the same level of substance out.
Yeah.
And she stretched out 6 to 8 minutes of what should be defined as substance into a 1-hour speech. And, and starting off with a straight face, the state of the state is strong. You've now lost most of New Yorkers who voted for her many of them aren't saying that the state's heading in the right direction.
No. My favorite part of the debates between you and her was when she said, if you ask anybody, they'll tell you they love the Long Island Expressway. Now, I don't know a single Long Islander that loves the Long Island. Oh, we put up with it. It's there, but nobody loves it, and that just showed me how out of touch she really is with what's going on down here.
And this was funded, this paving project for the Long Island Expressway that was done just before the election. Money secured from the federal government December of 2015. I was in my freshman year, a member of the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and we secured then the federal funding that ends up getting used just before the November 2022 election, and you're trying to use that against me, running against you for governor. Quite frankly, that should have been done years earlier.
Yeah.
Think of all the property damage that could have been avoided. The people who were putting themselves out to risk, not just those who are driving vehicles, but most specifically the people who are out there on motorcycles. It was a big danger.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And despite that hazard, the state was really dragging their feet. And I think it's just it adds extra insult to injury when you want to high five yourself the way she was doing that at the end of the race.
Well, my favorite example of that is I think it was when Bill de Blasio took credit for finishing the 2nd Avenue subway, and I'm like, didn't they start building this thing like 60 years ago? Like my grandmother would talk about how the fares went up from a nickel to a dime so they could build the 2nd Avenue subway, and that just shows the inefficiency in a lot of government programs, the inefficiency in a lot of the ways that we do things. We have no problem funding and getting things done that are useless, as we see in Rand Paul's Festivus report every year that we cover on this show, because it's so much fun to see what we waste money on in this government. But the stuff that matters never really seems to get finished.
Yeah, and the costs continue to go up. And these projects, which have a particular bottom line when first proposed, then end up getting delayed for a very long time and ends up costing substantially more. And some fiscal decisions are so poor where, like, for example, on Long Island, you have this nuclear plant in Shoreham that gets decommissioned decades ago. And yet, decades later, you actually owe more than you owed then because you're not appropriately paying down the principal, but you're still paying a whole lot of money. And right now for the federal government, you're seeing that just with the interest on the federal debt, which continues to grow. And now, fortunately, you have a bunch of conservatives in Congress who have said enough is enough, and they want to be smart and strategic in getting reforms. And they're proposing this not because they lack compassion. It's because they want to be responsible.
Absolutely.
And instead of waiting until the 11th hour where the debate is, oh, no, you have to pass this increase to the debt limit by midnight tonight or we're going to default on our credit. Instead, what they're saying is, let's talk about this now. Let's plan for the next several months before that date hits so that when that date does come, we're not jammed up like you've done in the past. Ultimately, what it comes down to is public opinion. And what we need is for the American public to be giving that support to these conservatives in Congress. Because if at the end of the day, the American public is backing up that effort for some of these fiscal reforms, you have a little bit more leverage in working with the Democrats.
Absolutely. And I said it before, and I said it on the show before. I totally supported what Matt Gaetz did with the speaker vote, getting the concessions. And I say that as someone, full disclosure, I'm friends with Congressman Gaetz. He's a good friend of mine, so it's hard for me to be objective about friends. But I was happy that he was able to particularly get rid of these omnibus spending packages, these 5,000-page bills that nobody reads, $1.4 trillion. You got 10 minutes to read it. I don't understand how anyone can justify voting for a bill that costs that much money. If you want to vote for the 11 appropriations bills?
Yeah, 12.
12 appropriations bills, and each one of them total that, okay, we can get behind that. But a lot of times, and I'm sure you can speak more to this being on House Financial Services for so long, is that you end up having to vote for something you hate just to pass military funding or just to pass the defense budget and stuff like that. You want to speak a little to that?
Yeah, no, it's the right move to split these bills apart, to work on it throughout the year. What that was just passed just before Christmas was for the fiscal year that ends September 30th. We should be back to that point where by September 30th, you're passing the bills for the following fiscal year. But what they do is they pass continuing resolutions because they wait too long. It's too much dysfunction. And that's why I'm happy that through this process in the House with the speaker vote, they weren't just challenging the status quo, they were changing the status quo. We are looking to put the years of Nancy Pelosi behind us. We're looking for a House of Representatives where people can read the bill before they vote on it, where people can know what's in it before they vote on it. And when you're passing a 4,000-plus page bill, $1.7 trillion, and you as a member of Congress don't know what's in it, there's clearly an opportunity and a need for change to make sure that never happens again. And that is one of the silver linings, one of the most productive parts of that rough first few day start. And by the way, some of these members who were voting for someone else other than Kevin McCarthy in those initial rounds, when they were doing interviews with the media and the media was asking them, why is it that you're voting no? What can get you to yes? And there were a bunch of members who were very specific, substantive, and articulate, and reasonable in explaining what they need in order to change how Congress operates. And if they did not do that, then the days of Nancy Pelosi wouldn't be as much behind us as they are today.
Well, there's that famous line from Nancy Pelosi when she when they passed Obamacare. We got to pass it to find out what's in it. I remember hearing that going, what does that even mean? So like none of you read it? I can understand not all members of Congress, but not one person read what's in this thing. And that seems to be what happens with a lot of these omnibus package. But we're pulling up on time here. I know you got a bunch of other places to be, so I'm very happy you sat down for the first interview in the new studio on the new show. Very jacked up for that.
I'm excited. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything that you've done through the years. Man, you're out there fighting the good fight all across Long Island. I've seen you up in Albany.
We froze to death up there outside of the Capitol.
I remember that press conference and rally that we had there on behalf of the kids. Unfortunately, leadership in office needs a reminder too often. They need to be reminded that they're there to serve the people as opposed to the people being there to serve that elected official. And you and a bunch of others have reminded these elected officials over and over again that you're not going away. You're going to stay active, that you have a voice, and I appreciate everything you do.
So before we wrap up, what's one thing that we're not talking about that we should be?
Well, I would just say that our elected officials need to be reminded who they serve. And there's this period once a campaign is over where they might feel emboldened. They get elected to a 2-year term, elected to a 4-year term, and they think that they aren't accountable until the next time they're up in office again. And one of the most powerful forces that we have throughout the remainder of their term is being active, being public, moving public opinion, and letting them know that you're not going to go away. So even though an election is over, even though the next election couldn't possibly be any further away because we just got out of one election, we need to be talking about being out there. It might be cold, but listen, you've been out there many times, even when it's quite uncomfortable. but talking about what do we need to do right now. Up in Albany, they have a budget coming up. They're declaring war on the suburbs. They need to make reforms with pro-criminal laws. They need to be bold in overhauling cashless bail. We need to fire rogue district attorneys like Alvin Bragg. We need to improve the quality of education inside of our schools. We need to make life in New York more affordable. And with this federal government, we need to save America. And I would just say that we need to be talking about what can we do right now as opposed to just talking amongst ourselves and waiting until the next election. No free passes. It's time to be active today, just like you're active the day before we head to the polls.
And guys, we talk about it on this show all the time about staying involved, staying engaged, and never stopping saying what's true. I'm going to tell you a quick little nugget about my friend Lee Zeldin here. I know for a fact that so many people probably told Lee to stay away from us, from me and Sean, the host of Ungovernable on LFA TV, was told to stay away from us, and he never did. And I just want to say, from me and from Sean, thank you so much for that. And if we had more politicians like this guy, this country would be in a hell of a lot better place. So Lee Zeldin, thank you so much for coming on and
great to be on.
And kicking off the new studio. Thanks a lot, brother. All righty, guys, we will be back in just a minute. Alrighty, guys, that was our chat with former congressman and former gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin. Look, honestly, I got to spend a lot of time with Lee over the course of the last year, and, we just need more people in politics like Lee Zeldin. He's a great man, great family man, great New Yorker, great American. That's it. A lot of politicians get a bad rap. They're all out for themselves. They're all liars. They're all con men, whatever. But Lee Zeldin is not among them. I said it yesterday on the LFA show, rumble.com/LFA-TV. If you want to get early access to all of our interviews, but I said it yesterday on the show that, Long Island lost something by Lee Zeldin no longer representing us, and New York lost something by Lee Zeldin not leading us, but America gained a lot by what he was able to do here in the state of New York, and, I can't thank him enough. I absolutely cannot thank him enough. Guys, if you're watching on the Lee Zeldin for Governor page, make sure you head to Facebook.com/LoudMajorityUS. Hit the follow button over there so you never miss out on any more of our interviews. If you want to get early access to any of our interviews here, we've got a big one coming up next week. I can't tell you who yet. I'm stuck between a little scheduling conflict with two people, but it's going to be fantastic. Either one, they're coming in. You know what the hell with it? I might just run both interviews next week, whatever. But make sure you guys head to rumble.com/LFA-TV for early access. For all of our interviews, guys. We're pulling up on 9 o'clock. If you're on Rumble, make sure you smash that Rumble button, rumble.com/LoudMajorityUS. Share the link all over the place. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button. Invite your friends to like the page. Just hit those little three dots and then hit invite friends. Let's keep growing this movement, guys. All gas, no brakes here at the Loud Majority. So we will see you guys on LFA TV at 1 o'clock. If not, I'll catch you guys Monday morning. It's supposed to snow this weekend, so everybody be safe. Guys, we're not going anywhere. We've only just begun. I'll see you guys Monday. Stay loud.